Hi, this is Zach with Warner Wound. Today Blake and I are going to be doing a side-by-side review of the Lum-Tec Super Combat B2 and Combat B16 models. They're obviously part of the same line, and though very similar, there's a lot of differences between them. So we're going to go through and look at the various components of the watches, dials, cases, straps, and really look at how they compare. The dials of the Combat B16 and Super Combat B2 are clearly both based on a military aesthetic, but they come across very differently. And I'll take a closer look at them now. The Combat B16 has a very almost unaestheticized dial. It's very purposeful, it's very clean, it's very to the point. You have outer indices of hatch marks that indicate an hour, the individual minute, and then you have this internal indices with minutes in 5-minute increments, and this kind of large arrow indicating 00 or 60. It says Lum-Tec MDV technology in red, very small there, Combat B below that. The black of the dial itself is very deep and very rich, goes well with the PVD of the case. What I like about this is that it really gets that kind of tactical tool aesthetic across. It's just so purposeful, so readable at a glance. Differently than the Combat B16, the Super Combat B2 has a more aestheticized dial. It clearly refers to kind of a vintage aviator look, which is clear in the large 12-3-9 numerals. The font they use, which I really like, is this rounded font, which also has a kind of a retro feel to it. Looking more at the details now, you have the smaller hours indicated here, also in that rounded font. You have an indices going around the edge, which is the minute indices. It's small, but it's still also very legible. Here you have a sub-second dial. It just says 60, 15, 30, 45. It's clear. It's more aesthetic, I think, than functional, but it's very actually an enjoyable detail of the face. In red here you have Lum-Tec, then it says MDV technology, then very small it says Swiss Mechanical, referring to the ETA Unitas movement inside. Now looking at them together, again, just taking a look at the hands that Lum-Tec uses, they both have Roman sword hands. In fact, they're just about identical in size and dimension. The Combat B16 has this long stick seconds hand that's loomed, and obviously you have this small red sub-dial here. One thing that is really fantastic about these watches that you could probably get from the name is that the loom is incredibly strong on these. It really, it's almost remarkable. Go into a room with a little bit of light, walk out, and it is glowing. And the glow lasts for a long time.
Okay, so taking a look at the cases of the B16 and the Super Combat B2, you'll notice that aside from coloration and scale, they're all pretty much identical. Both feature this classic military coining along the external bezel, and looking at the profile of the watch, you notice that they both have the same silhouette and feature identical crowns. Taking a look now at what differentiates the two watches, we have here the B16, and one of the more striking differences that you'll notice immediately is that this is a 43mm case, which is smaller than the 45 on the B2. It features 22mm lugs, and just generally speaking, it's a much more stealthy, compact watch. It also features black titanium carbide PVD coatings throughout the case, which again adds to the stealth aesthetic of the watch and matches well with the black dial. The case itself is a stainless steel, a bead-blasted stainless steel, and what that ends up doing is it makes this watch a little bit heavier than the titanium B2 case, which is interesting given that it's a slightly smaller watch. Okay, so now we're taking a look here at the Super Combat B2. Again, so this obviously is the larger of the two watches. It features a 45mm case with 24mm lugs. And probably what's most striking about it is its gunmetal titanium PVD coating to the case, which the case is actually titanium itself. So first of all, sticking with the color, I think it offers a nice contrast to the black dial of the watch, and I think that the lighter gunmetal adds to the more sort of fashion-oriented aesthetic of the watch. You also will notice, obviously, with it being a titanium case, this watch is very light. It's much lighter than the the Combat B2, and given its size, it wears much lighter than I'd say almost any other watch I've worn at this size.
So perhaps the biggest difference between the Super Combat B2 and the Combat B16 really lies within, and that's the movements of the watches. The Super Combat B2 is powered by a Unitas 6498-1 movement. This is a hand-wound movement, 17 joules. If you know about these movements, they're actually started as pocket watch movements, so they're very large. And what's actually kind of nice about that is when you look through the back, all the gears are very big. They're very nice movements to look at. And Lum-Tec got a decorated movement, so it has blued screws, Geneva stripes, and polished gears. It's really a gorgeous movement, and it's very attractive. Adds a lot of value to the watch. But it's important to note that this is hand wound, and that might be a little bit off-putting at first with such a kind of a sporty and aggressive watch. The act of winding is almost a little bit delicate. You have to actually take care of the watch essentially to keep it running. You think of a very active watch, a very active person, an automatic movement just kind of makes sense. That being said, you get very used to it, and it's such a beautiful movement, you just doesn't really matter. But now looking at the Combat B16, what you have here is a Miyota 9015 automatic movement. Now this is a 24 joule automatic that beats at 28.8 beats per hour. This is essentially the Miyota equivalent of a ETA 2824-2. It's a workhorse movement. It's 3 hands. It's very accurate. It's very simple. It's kind of the most sensible movement to put into a watch like this. It's totally lacking in pretension. It's just very simple and reliable. What's nice, and you look in the case back here, is that the 9015s actually have a little bit of decoration too. There's a little bit of Geneva striping on that plate there. It also is hacking seconds. If you unwind it, it's a hacking second hand, and you can manually wind it as well.
So now we're going to take a look at the straps that come with the Super Combat B2 and the Combat B16. Now both of them come with a black and a green nylon NATO strap with PVD hardware, which we'll talk about in a second. But both also come with what I would call a specialty strap. With the Super Combat B2, you're going to get this very nice black leather water-resistant strap. It's in the pilot style. Like I said, it's a black leather. It features gray stitching throughout that matches well with the gunmetal PVD. It also features these black rivets here closer to the case. I think aesthetically, this is a great looking strap. I think they've really nailed it. I think it was the perfect strap to include with this watch. However, which we'll see in a minute when I discuss the wearability of the watch, the strap itself, given the rivets here close to the case, it can be quite uncomfortable to wear. So from that perspective, I think it was a bit of a miss. But aesthetically, I really like the way that it looks. Taking a look now at the Combat B16, the specialty strap that comes with this watch is a really nice Lum-Tec braided molded rubber strap. This is probably the most comfortable rubber strap that I've ever worn. And I think it fits aesthetically really well with the stealthy, more utilitarian aesthetic of the watch. Now what makes this watch so comfortable to wear is that if I take a look at the profile here, what you'll notice is that for the most part the strap is very flexible. It fits around your wrist very nicely. It's no problem to adjust. But if you look here closer to where the strap connects to the case of the watch, the rubber is actually quite rigid and it's molded to fit to the contours of your wrist. This creates a really nice wear to your wrist. In fact, having worn it on my wrist and some other people with smaller wrists, everyone pretty much says that the watch wears very nicely and very comfortably. I think this is a really great accomplishment on Lum-Tec's part. And like I said, I'll say it, it's pretty much easily the most comfortable strap rubber strap that I've ever worn. Okay, so now we're taking a look at the Super Combat B2. Now, this is a slightly larger watch. It measures 45 millimeters in diameter, but it still wears quite comfortably on my 7.5-inch wrist. The crown, it protrudes a little bit more, just again, given the diameter of the watch, but it wears quite nice. And what really is nice about this watch and what adds to the wearability is this titanium case. It's very light, certainly lighter than a lot of watches that I've experienced at this size, so that really shouldn't be a concern. Transitioning now to the strap, this is really sort of my only bone to pick with the wearability of this particular model. As I mentioned before, given where the rivets are located on the strap, it never really fits quite snugly against your wrist, no matter how tight you wear it. And obviously, you don't want to wear it so tight that it cuts off circulation on your hand. So it's just a little bit of a gripe, and I think that it sort of retracts from the wearability and the comfort of the watch. Just sort of circling around to take a look at the strap, you'll see that it transitions from a 24 to what looks like a 20, making it comfortable to wear on this side of your wrist. But again, the way that the strap protrudes off your wrist with these rivets is a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, so now we're taking a look at the Combat B16 on the wrist. So you'll see this watch fits very nicely on my wrist. I have a 7.5 inch wrist, and the 43 millimeter case sits very nicely. The crown doesn't protrude too much, so it makes it nice and comfortable to wear. And the weight of the watch is not excessive, so it's very comfortable to wear from that perspective. But what really makes this particular model really comfortable to wear is, as I mentioned before, the molded rubber strap. So to the extent that you can see here, it really keeps it nice and snug to your wrist, but without being uncomfortable. I haven't fastened the strap very tightly to my wrist, but it sits with a really nice profile right on the top of my wrist, and it makes a really nice comfortable wear. Coming around here, you can see the buckle, and again, it's not fastened extremely tightly to my wrist, but again, it gets a really nice snug fit that wears very comfortably. Okay, so taking a look now at the NATOs that both watches come with. As I mentioned, both will come with a black and a green NATOs. They're identical, aside from the fact that obviously the B2 comes with 24 millimeter straps and the B16 comes with 22 millimeter straps. They're very well constructed, very heavyweight nylon with black PVD hardware. You also notice that they're stitching throughout as opposed to heat sealing, which is really nice and a good sign of quality. And you also notice that the holes on the straps they're well constructed, even with wear. Where you're not seeing any stretching or any fraying on our parts, so that's always a good sign. Just generally speaking, two very well built, very nice nylon NATOs.
So to summarize, the Lum-Tec Super Combat B2 and Combat B16 are two great watches. They kind of come across with this cool military aesthetic. Clearly they're very similar, but they're actually very different from each other, and wearing them is a very different experience. The B16 is a very sporty watch, very tactical and very stealth looking, with a great molded rubber strap, which is extremely ergonomic, comfortable, and really has this cool aggressive look that just works so well with the watch. And then the Combat B2 is this kind of retro looking aviator inspired watch. It's made a little more fashionable. Not to say it's a fashion watch, but it just has this aestheticized look. It's very comfortable. The titanium case is very light, and the gray PVD is just beautiful. It's really unique. Really make it stand out in your collection. Like we said before, the strap that comes with looks great. We don't love the way it feels. It didn't fit really either of us particularly well, but straps can be changed. The watch itself is gorgeous. The B16 runs $925 and the B2 runs $1295, making them a bit on the pricier side, but honestly they're just such beautiful watches that you put them on, you never want to take them off. So we are fully into them. We support them. Thank you for watching. Please leave comments if you're interested, and check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you.